The Theory of Foolishness. A Chad Baggins special.
It wasn't so long ago that life was simple, and, for want of a better phrase, boring as balls. You only have to go back to the Lord's year 1971 to discover a time when the only forms of entertainment widely available were local puppet shows, usually performed at the gallows, and wireless broadcasts of poetry. And let's be honest, nobody really likes poetry. One particular individual, Jimi Hendrix, a young man with a burning desire for expression, noticed one day when sewing how nimble his fingers were, and came to the realization that those fingers could be put to better use than hemming his grandmother's old bedsheets. It was no easy task, but after 2 days, Jimmy successfully invented the electric guitar, the first ever musical instrument. It was a revelation and changed the world as we know it. Sadly, Jimmy died at the young age of 27 in a sewing accident. Though it came as no surprise, his grandmother later recalled, Jimmy would often say, "Cross-stitch will be the end of me." His legacy, however, lived on. A group of young idiots one day found Jimmy's electric guitar at the dump while wading through the trash for aluminium cans to recycle, 10p apiece. They played the guitar and found they were okay, and, because it was covered in tiny little grubs, decided to go by the name Beatles, Beatles Everywhere. In no time, Beatles, Beatles Everywhere were the biggest thing on the planet, with such hits as Ticket to Wrexham, All You Need Is Lots of Money, and Love Me Don't, Go Away Please. But the trio were not without controversy. After the release of their third album, Sgt. Pepper's Lovely Hands, they proclaimed that they were, in fact, the second coming of Jesus Christ. Consequently, the trio gained a literal cult following, which ultimately ended in the three, John Bon Lennon, Paul Giamatti, and Bongo Rongo, going into self-exile. To this day, their whereabouts are still unknown. After the worldwide success of Beatles, Beatles Everywhere, the world was swept up in a storm of musical ecstasy. Bob Bobbert Dylan Roberts released the hit single Bobby's Boy. Maradona grew to infamy by shooting fireworks from her tits. Britney Spears famously pretended to be a 16-year-old pop singer just to raise the money to go to Disneyland. They were crazy times indeed. This, however, was nothing compared to the golden days of music. Once the 90s came around, the world was obsessed with the one, the only, Frankie Santa. Not only did he have the voice of an angel, but he was as mad as a box of frogs. Not content with his angelic singing voice, Frankie decided to become a mobster, smuggling lobster during the Great Shellfish Prohibition. He was eventually tracked down and sent to spend the rest of his days at Alcatraz, until, that is, he was busted out of prison by no other than Nicolas Cage and some old Scottish guy. After his escape, some say he was lost at sea, while others claim if you visit his old cell at the stroke of midnight, you can still hear his spirit belting out a tear-jerking love ballad. Of course, no retelling of the history of music would be complete without mentioning the King of America, Elton Presley. He, of course, became famous for shaking his arse on TV, but later became famous for his jet black hair, cool bravado, and hit songs. He truly was the King of America. The coronation was a sight to behold, indeed. There was also a rumour that he killed a guy, but that is still highly debated to this very day. Those were the glory days of music indeed. However, after those magnificent times came the Dark Ages. All the splendour of the good old days would be soon forgotten, as a whole plethora of crap singers would soon flood the airwaves. Singers such as Shitbull, Justin Bieber and Miley Ray Cyrus were suddenly everywhere, not to mention those two spiky-haired arseholes from Ireland. As if overnight, true musical talent became a thing of the past. Musicians and artists were turfed out onto their behinds to make way for talent contest winners. Shows like Britain's Got B-listers and Pop's False Idol would almost kill the music industry completely. Record sales were at an all-time low. Singers lost their homes, and it's rumoured that some even resorted to cannibalism, just to get by. There was, however, a saving grace. A young woman came to the forefront of the music industry to save struggling artists everywhere. Her name was Tina Lerner. Tina's powerful vocal range and her sensual stage performance recaptured the very essence of music, rejuvenating washed-out, bored audiences all over the world. She spurred on musical artists to put down the femur bones they'd been harvesting for stew and pick up their musical instruments once again in the memory of the late, great Jimi Hendrix. With that said, and for all her great deeds and contributions towards music, it is a shame Tina went on to become the ruthless leader of the post-apocalyptic civilization Bartertown. Oh, how the mighty turn mad. So, from music's very beginnings in a small textiles factory to a post-apocalyptic hellscape, that was a brief history of music. Who knows which avenues we shall travel down in the future, and which groundbreaking or heartbreaking musician shall emerge from the primordial soup of creativity. But one thing is assured. It's going to be a crazy ride.
Like, comment, and subscribe, you fools!